Buddy, this is day 1546. Let's make sure that we're on. And we are burning the midnight oil. It just can't be helped at this point. It just can't be helped because we are working around the clock um, to get our son's remains and to get accountability. Also, to expose the harm that is being done to our military, and most of all, to the El Paso community. And it's huge, y'all. It just makes me shake. It makes me shake because I know how important this all is to everybody. Um, because not only to El Paso, and I'm going to make the argument um, that this absolutely affects the entire United States and, of course, into Mexico. This is an international case, of course. It's an international case and it is affecting politics everywhere. Richard's name is known. It is absolutely known. Um, the legal community, the criminal judicial system is, uh, my dad always said, uh, I don't even want to say, you got to make waves, otherwise you're dead in the water, right? That's what he used to say. You've got to make waves, otherwise you're dead in the water. And what he meant by that is if you want the world to work right, if you want our system to work right, if you want your family to work right, if you want your job to work right, if you want anything, um, it's not going to happen with you just waiting and floating, um, floating through life. You've got to swim. You've got to swim hard, um, and you've got to make it happen. You've got to do the oversight. You've got to do the work for it to happen. And so that's what we've been doing. Um, and we are really just beginning because there's been so much obstruction in Richard's case that it has taken us 4 years to get to this point where we can say 1,548 days, which is over 4 years, um, 1,548 days since Richard was premeditatedly murdered on Fort Bliss. And it was a code red. It was an internal order to murder a Fort Bliss soldier that was a whistleblower that was reporting the criminal trafficking, uh, which is the drug trafficking, of course, and the weapons and the ammunition, and the child trafficking, the kid trafficking, right? The unaccompanied minor trafficking, that, now 500,000 of them are mostly dead. Um, um, and, this is, uh, how can this happen, right? How can this happen that a Fort Bliss soldier is ordered to be murdered internally on Fort Bliss, and then proceed to, we believe, try to collect on his death, um, because there's so much fraud. And then also, and that's why they didn't contact us, the fraud, in many different ways, and we'll be exposing that also. We have been exposing it, but it's just so much to tell you that we want to focus on how can this happen on Fort Bliss internally, and then the cover up, to proceed the cover up, and to have a dirty CID agent and allowing and um, sharing unauthorized um, access materials and information to a convicted criminal, a confirmed convicted criminal, and Leilani Hart, who has many, many problems on Fort Bliss and in El Paso. In El Paso, her criminal activity dates way back before Richard was even born, and it has continued. It's a huge mountain of unlawful conduct. Okay, let's just call it what it is. It is a huge mountain of unlawful conduct, and it has been piling up and piling up and piling up to the point where she has been emboldened. Um, she has been emboldened to even brag about her unlawful conduct. She doesn't have, uh, you know, any kind of moral um, compass to uh, feel bad, to want to repent, to be ashamed of her mountain of unlawful conduct. She's a convicted criminal, a confirmed convicted criminal. And it's not just for, petty theft or something like this. She failed to uh, report that a 7-year-old was taken advantage of terribly, terribly, vile and vulgar. A vile and vulgar assault in her master bedroom by multiple members of her household. She's just cold blooded, hard hearted. And this mountain of unlawful conduct, convicted criminal, was used as an unreliable source to provide false information, to fabricate a false story, to deflect her involvement in the murder of our son, Richard Halliday. She was given a platform. They allowed her at El Paso Matters, who's owned by El Paso Community Foundation, who was under investigation by Yvonne Rosales. You have to understand that. They gave this pile of unlawful conduct convicted criminal, Leilani Hart, a platform in their media, using their media, not even using it, weaponizing the media that is a 501c3, which means they need to be neutral, that uh, they have benefits because they are regulated to be a nonprofit media organization. And they risked all of that to allow her to use and abuse and weaponize their media platform to frame a fabricated false story to obstruct justice in Richard Halliday's case, in the investigation, in the murder investigation, the international murder investigation, the code red, because she even said it was a code red. She knew it was internal. She has been has a history of manipulating Clem Coward, who was the commanding general of 32nd ADCOM. She has conflicts of interest, a history of manipulating the likes of Bradford Bugado, the lieutenant colonel of the G3 of the 32nd ADCOM. She has the history of manipulating several key figures in all of this, like Director of Emergency Services Thomas Kane, who controls the security on Fort Bliss. And they allow, and this pile, she's a pile of unlawful conduct convicted criminal that was given this platform in order to weaponize. They absolutely knew she was going to weaponize, um, to deflect, to attempt to deflect her actions, her involvement in the murder of our son, Richard Halliday, the whistleblower. What was he whistleblowing on? The criminal trafficking. The criminal trafficking, and also the connection between Fort Bliss and the criminal trafficking, and the connection with Fort Bliss and the El Paso um, uh, Walmart mass shooting. So that's really important. She is a this pile. You have to understand what she is. She's a pile. She is a pile of unlawful conduct, convicted criminal involved in the murder of a Fort Bliss whistleblower. Young, beautiful. And her son, Dallas Wayne Hart, was Richard's platoon leader. And he also has a lot of trouble under his belt, and so does her other son. And, so it's, and we can talk about the confession that everyone knows about. But just think about Leilani Hart and Bob Moore of El Paso Matters of El Paso Community Foundation. Think about their connections. Think about that, the media was weaponized, allowed itself to be weaponized. Bob Moore absolutely knew that she was an unreliable source, that he absolutely risked everything. His 501c3, his IRS status. I mean, how many businesses are willing to risk their IRS status? And he absolutely knew that she was feeding him a false narrative, a false story, in order to deflect her involvement in the murder of the Fort Bliss whistleblower soldier Richard Halliday, our son. That's a huge story. And how did that happen? Why would that happen? And I've been talking about it for the last couple days. Just like Bob Moore knowingly risked everything to give a platform to a pile of unlawful that is a confirmed convicted criminal. Bill Hicks, a usurper, gave control of the DA's office, the management of the DA's office, to the Juarez cartel. Knowingly. Why is it that and not letting him be vetted? Luis Rene Diaz is not vetted. We have it in our open records that Bill Hicks stopped HR, which is Human Resources, a background check on Luis Rene Diaz. He's the one that intercepted and interfered in a background check for his manager, who is absolutely connected to the Juarez cartel, to Alba, who is not alive anymore because, bullets aren't too friendly to a head. And Alba being connected to, of Shavira, to Sanchez, to um, Moya. Willie Moya. Willie Moya is like the Al Capone, and even bigger than for the Juarez, um, the city of Juarez. And he's no more alive for the same reasons that Alba is not alive. And this connection is connected to Bliss Avenue. This connection is to the the chief medical examiner, to the county attorney position at the time, to, well, now to the county attorney, to DPS, to the El Paso Independent School District Police. The Juarez cartel has been given our government as a platform to continue their criminal activity. And think about it. Why is it that Bill Hicks's number one contributor is from Juarez, Mexico? Purchase Funeral Home. Purchase Funeral Home is Bill Hicks's number one contributor. Now, if you have information that can straighten this out, that this is not as bad as what we are learning, then please share it with us. But right now, it is very clear that the Juarez cartel has control of major parts of the law enforcement, even the El Paso Police Department, the law enforcement community in El Paso, and also the criminal justice system in El Paso. And that is huge. That's what Bill Hicks has allowed. Like Bob Moore has ignored the pile of unlawful conduct convicted criminal Leilani Hart, Bill Hicks has interfered in the background check to prevent cartel members from getting jobs in the DA office, right? And what was Willie Moya famous for, as far as his criminal activity? It was on trafficking, wasn't it? It was on trafficking for drugs and trafficking for human trafficking. And, so what was Richard reporting on? The criminal trafficking. And the other thing that was really talked about in the history of Wilfredo Moya, is the money laundering. Of course, the money laundering. And I really this is how dirty Marlon Soto is, trying to frame a false narrative of, like he could interfere in this cartel group, like he would be, challenge this kind of cartel group. And I think he's right on that. he did challenge them, didn't he? He reported on them, and um, and it has, and that proves that the chain of command is compromised also, which brings in Leilani Hart, which brings in Clem Coward, which brings in Bob Moore and Bill Hicks. It's very clear that Richard threatened the criminal trafficking network that the Juarez cartel had established in El Paso, in the criminal um, judicial system, and also the law enforcement system in El Paso. And all of it makes sense to us now. Um, why the vile and vulgar retaliation that we've suffered, why the delay in notifying us, why um, the obstruction of justice for so long. And now, because we have reported all of this, those from Washington, those that are, uh, you know, have oversight power, are now looking into all this because it makes sense now. It makes sense. They're putting the pieces together because, thank you, Team Fine Richard Halliday. Thank you so much for putting the pieces. And we have assembled all of that and put them in a multitude. We sent letters today. You know, we try to send letters every day. It's just part of our life now, in order to get our son's remains and to get justice, to get accountability for those that murdered Richard. And don't forget, prime suspect is Leilani Hart and her son, Dallas Wayne Hart, and of course, Tavita Nusa. And who is Tavita Nusa? That is something we really have to explain to you too, so stay tuned on that one. But I think it makes sense, um, it in an evil way, in a very criminal way, um, and because Leilani Hart is connected to Rosa Maria Valdez Garcia from Bliss Avenue with Danae Katzen, who targeted our son's case. Rosa Maria targeted our son's case. Leilani Hart targeted our son's case. That they are absolutely connected to this um, cartel criminal network known for their trafficking and also for their money laundering. Because if you're making if you're making money illegally, then you have to launder it. And this is, you know, where Nadal Baim comes in with all the real estate. Um, you know, there's uh, others that come in, and also the DPS, Texas Ranger Sanchez, who um, is also connected to this, who was assigned to investigate Richard's case. That is all making a lot of sense now, and they're culpable for major, major crimes, major civil rights offenses. You know, all of these people that are paid by the government have to give honest service, and when they obstruct, when they uh, you know don't give honest service, then they're violating the law. The other thing is this has been allowed to happen not only by Bill Hicks and Bob Moore and El Paso Matters and El Paso Community Foundation. You know, we've written the board. Um, the protection of Leilani and giving her the platform in order to weaponize the media, weaponizing the media in order to frame a false and fabricated story to retaliate against a whistleblower and obstruct justice um, in Richard's case in order to attempt to deflect her involvement in the murder of our son Richard is is also um, criminal. Criminal. So, you know, just like that is happening, I want to say that Yvonne Rosales is also negligent and derelict in her duty. She is allowing all of this to happen because she is the prosecutor right now. Okay, so let me explain this to you. Um, we know that Bill Hicks with Bob Moore, with Justin Underwood, colluded together, schemed together. We have the open records, the hard evidence. We couldn't say this unless we had the hard evidence that they schemed together to remove and replace Yvonne Rosales. And the way they figured it out, the way they colluded together, the way they schemed together was that they would remove her, of course, with this petition, with the petition to remove her. And she then resigned in duress, and her resignation letter clearly shows that it was duress. But even that doesn't matter because Bill Hicks was appointed to be the district attorney by Governor Abbott. But he failed to sign the anti-bribery line before he took the oath of office. That made his oath of office void. He didn't install properly. He never, even though he was appointed, he never became the legitimate district attorney. He's an imposter, which means he's a usurper because he never properly installed as district attorney. Now, what does the law say about that? The Texas Constitution. It says there cannot be a gap if Yvonne Rosales resigned, which she resigned in duress. It doesn't count. The duress resignation doesn't count. But let's say she did resign. It doesn't matter. She cannot let a gap happen. She has to be the district attorney until another is properly installed, right? Properly installed. And I don't have the right word. I just read the right word and now I lost it again. But it means that they are vetted, that they are officially installed properly, meaning that they have signed the anti-bribery statement and then they took the oath of office and they can it's as simple as that. It's as simple as that. But Bill Hicks didn't do that. He didn't first sign the anti-bribery statement, which is very curious, isn't it? Because he later admitted to having conditions to his, which is a bribe. So, because there cannot be a gap, and Yvonne Rosales must continue as the district attorney, as the prosecutor, because otherwise the people of El Paso and of course our son Richard do not have honest service. That is huge. And so whether um, Yvonne Rosales feels like it or not, is happy about it or not, is afraid or not, is ashamed or not, she still is the holdover. That's the key word, holdover district attorney until another is officially installed, properly installed. So that is really important. She is now, because of hoeing and humming and being ashamed and all of this other stuff, being embarrassed. I don't know. I don't know what her problem is. Um, she is derelict and negligent in her duty. But what's even worse than that is the negligence to the very people that voted her in, the very people that she swore, not even those that voted her in, but that all of the people of El Paso County that she swore to serve. She's negligent and derelict, and they're suffering for it. And I know our son's case is suffering for it. Our family is suffering for it. It's a very selfish position she's in, and derelict and negligent, and I don't know if there is a criminal penalty for what she's doing. I don't know. I know that there is a criminal penalty for being a usurper. So, and that's what Bill Hicks is, and he's worse than that. Not only is he a usurper, he has not just allowed, but he has brought in the Juarez cartel into the office of the district attorney, the prosecuting attorney for El Paso, that has been vulnerable, left vulnerable by the dereliction and negligence of Yvonne Rosales. Because Bill Hicks has not been properly installed. He's not the DA. He's never, even though he was appointed, he didn't take the office. Not legally. And legally is what matters. So thank you, Anicia, for coming on. And, there's a lot going on, and more support and public support. And you saw, I'm going to do part 6 soon on Leilani Hart, who is a real Leilani Hart. But I wanted people to really read, please share the 1 through 5, and, understand who this pile, Leilani Hart is a pile of unlawful conduct. Since before the pile started, before Richard was even born, and it has continued to build up and build up and build up. And she's one big pile of unlawful conduct and a convicted criminal, a confirmed convicted criminal. And I think that that is really important when you understand that she was allowed to weaponize the media and the violations that surround all of this. They're huge. The obstruction of justice is particularly hurtful. So that's really important for you to share. I hope you share it all. And we will be back tomorrow, God willing. And we just know this. We are just getting started. Because with this new information, connecting more and more dots connected, and it's very clear what they have done, and the proof of the motive for Richard reporting criminal trafficking, when you know that the very people that are connected historically to um, to the trafficking are right there in the law enforcement on Fort Bliss military base, and also in the criminal judicial system. So thank you so much. Please share, and we'll be back tomorrow.